talking about the rest of 2019. Now, when I talk about this film, you might think I'm talking about films from a decade ago when I say that we got a Zombieland film this year.
Welcome to Zombieland. Life is about more than just survival. We were a family. Dysfunctional, sure, but what family isn't?
Merry Christmas!
Now, I was really of the mindset that, like, I think we're a little bit over the zombie craze, you know. Last Zombieland came out a decade ago. It was very of its time. Were people really clamouring for another Zombieland film? No, not really. But, you know what? This film was a lot of fun. It kind of felt very much like a throwback. It did feel like a film that had been put on ice for like a decade. But it was very entertaining. I thought the comedy was very, very good. There is a lot of kind of meta humor in it that worked very well. As I said, some of the jokes felt a little bit of their time. You know, felt like kind of, you know, end of the 2000s, started of the 2010s. It's a little bit of a time capsule in that way. And I kind of found that quite charming. It's, you know, it's not high art. I like the first Zombieland film enough. I can't, and I don't hold it up as like amazing. And you won't hold up this film as amazing either, really. But, you know, there's some creative ideas in there that we're quite enjoying. Woody Harrelson is brilliant in this film again. Jesse Eisenberg is fine. Emma Stone is pretty good as well. You know, they have kind of a love story, romantic story that, you know, I wasn't particularly invested in, didn't really care. Abigail Breslin, she's really good in this film. It's nice. You know, I think her character is the most interesting because there isn't a massive notable change in the rest of them, but for her, obviously, you know, she was very, very young when the first film came out. Now it's been 10 years. So I think some of the best stuff in the movie is playing off her, you know, having gotten older in Zombieland and Woody Harrelson's kind of relationship with her as a kind of a father figure. I also I can't remember the actress's name, but I love, it's such a stupid joke that I expected to hate, that I really loved. There's like this kind of valley girl, kind of ditzy blonde character that's so overdone in movies and so stupid. Definitely felt kind of like something from a decade ago, but I actually kind of loved it. I think it was mainly because her performance was fantastic. And it was, you know, it was relatively well written. I think this film probably deserves better than it got. Certainly, maybe if you go in with low expectations like I did, you could have a lot of fun with Zombieland Double Tap, because I thought it was a bit of fun. I don't think you can talk about unnecessary sequels though, unless you talk about Rambo, Last Blood.
I finally came home.
Uncle Dad!
To defend the only family I've ever known.
You must really want this girl.
All she's got is me.
This was a movie I just went to see because I wanted to get out of the house, and on that note, it delivered. God, this movie is a mess. It really is. I can't say I'm the biggest Rambo fan, but I really like First Blood. I mean, it's so funny. Like, you tell people about First Blood and they don't believe you because they just think of Rambo and they think like, shoot everybody. And First Blood, there's I think like one death and it's accidental. And that's basically the story of the whole movie. And you know, even some of the Rambo sequels that I've seen, there is sort of that kind of, you know, thread of looking after our veterans, that kind of thing. This movie, the morality, the themes of it are all over the place. It's like he's a veteran. He's sort of settled down, and then it's like him, you know, being a PTSD stricken mess of a veteran saves the day. You know, he kind of throws away his meds and then he just goes psychotically killing everyone. Alright. It's really, really violent. Some people were put off by that, didn't bother me that much, to be honest, because like the Rambo movie before this was very violent as well. It's also just such a poorly structured movie. It feels like this movie was just, like, it feels so low budget for most of it. It feels like a TV show for a lot of it. The basic plot is Rambo's, I guess, surrogate daughter gets kidnapped in Mexico. And yeah, did you expect any good portrayals of Mexicans in a Rambo movie? I heard people saying this going into it, and I was like, oh, look, I'll see if I can pick up on this myself. I won't just assume it is. And it's so funny because of how awful it is that, like, you know, it goes into America, and then as soon as it's in Mexico, it's like, you know, these sinister looking angles and the music's playing, and it's like, oh, and you know, you get that Breaking Bad yellow filter. Yeah, no, I don't think there's any good characters who are Mexican in this. You know, not that the Rambo films have ever been like a beacon of social or racial progression, but oh wait, there is one character who's living in Mexico that's good, who just disappears basically out of the film for no real reason. Yeah, this film, I've never seen a film that's so poorly paced. Like, it's really, like, it feels like it's just spinning its wheels for so long. Like, it's an hour, the film's like an hour and a half. It feels like there's about 20 minutes of story in it. It's just dragged out forever. 2/3 of the film, nothing's really happening. The last third of the film is what you've seen in the trailers, which is Rambo basically booby-trapping his house, and all the people from Mexico, the cartel, coming to try to kill him, which is incredibly violent, as I said. Yeah, I don't really, you know, I guess it was a bit of fun, a bit of cheesy, over-the-top goriness towards the end. I don't get, like, they kind of really kind of positioned this as, you know, I'm going to spoil this a little bit if you really care. Nobody saw this film, really. They kind of held this up as, like, this is the last Rambo, this is Rambo's last stand. And it's not. He survives in a really cheesy way. He just kind of sits on a rocking chair, like, yeah, Rambo, woo. And then it, like, I don't know what reaction they were going for. Over the credits, they show flashbacks of, like, the previous Rambo films. There's everyone to be like, yo, Rambo. Whereas, you know, it starts a clip from First Blood as it's like, oh, as if to be like, we've come full circle. It's like, no, the first First Blood was like a kind of an essay and thesis on how poorly treated veterans were coming back from Vietnam and the damage it's done. Whereas this is basically like, I was at war, I'm at war now, kill everybody. Yeah, this movie was a mess. Pretty much totally forgettable, to be honest. I don't think I'll ever see it again. I don't think I ever want to see it again. Chances are you don't need to see it either. Another film that was totally unnecessary, but you know, people seem to really get angry over it, possibly because it all featured women, possibly because the director made some comments, and that is Charlie's Angels.
Welcome to the Townsend Agency. I run a covert group of exceptional women. So you guys are like lady spies. We work outside the rules. I don't like that, boy. In secret.
This is Charlie's Angels. That's written by, directed by, produced by, starring by, tweeted about by Elizabeth Banks. She was everywhere in the marketing for this. You know what? I've made some comments about this movie on the podcast. You know, I kind of went after some of the mixed tone in the trailers. The trailers just weren't very good. I also kind of said that I don't know who's clamoring for a Charlie's Angels movie. You know, Charlie's, like, some people are like now holding up the Charlie's Angels movie from the early 2000s as like, how could they? You know, after these classics, those movies sucked as well, and they were just basically, you know, for, you know, ogling teenage boys. And as far as the TV series goes, that was a long time ago. They've rebooted that countless times. They rebooted it a couple of years ago, and no one watched it on TV. So I don't know who they thought this was for. But I went to see this movie, and I thought it was quite fun, actually, surprisingly. I think the problem is that they kind of aimed it at, you know, maybe kind of teenage girls, but teenage girls don't really know who Charlie's Angels are, or really care. I thought the cast really stole the show. I'm going to try and name them now, and I'll probably forget one of the angels. There's Naomi Scott, Kristen Stewart, Elsa Batinsky, I think that's her name. They had really great chemistry. I thought they were very, very charming in the movie. And it worked really well. Other things in the movie, I thought it looked quite well. This is a very competently directed movie by Elizabeth Banks. I will say it felt very outdated in some ways, but in a way I sort of enjoyed, the same way I kind of enjoyed Zombieland for that degree. It felt very much like a 2000s action movie where it was kind of very, you know, generic kind of style over substancy. Nothing especially great in it. I thought some of the kind of closer combat action scenes were quite good though. Yeah, there's not much to say about this movie. It's a bit of light entertainment, and for that, I actually thought it was quite fun. I did think the cast were great. Pretty much all of them. I think the story, the story is nothing we haven't seen a million times before. But we let other films get by on that criteria, so why not Charlie's Angels? I don't think it deserved the drubbing that it got. I don't think it's an amazing movie by any means, but it was a bit of fun. I think one of the things I will criticise about it is that it had some good ideas as far as how to handle the kind of lore, and I think for a while I thought the story was going to be really interesting and there was a twist I wasn't seeing, and then it just kind of goes, no, it's exactly what you think it is actually. So yeah, it doesn't get points for originality, but it's a Charlie's Angels reboot, so did anyone really go into this expecting originality? And if you don't go in expecting much, you probably will have a pretty good time with this movie. As I said, sometimes I just go to the cinema to get out of the house, and after times I don't want to get out of the house, I just throw on Netflix, and there was quite a few films on Netflix this year that I want to talk about. One of which is Between Two Ferns, the movie.
You owe me. Go across the country, get 10 more episodes of Between Two Ferns.
10 of your dumb internet talk show, and you give me a network talk show. I'm a white man, and I'm straight, and I deserve it.
It's of course based on the web series of Zach Galifianakis, which were, kind of inconsistent at best. Just these fun celebrity interviews. It's directed by, and I think written by Scott Aukerman, who did Comedy Bang Bang, and he's done a lot of great stuff that I really enjoy. This movie's fine. Totally forgettable. I think, Netflix movies a lot of the time are kind of predispositioned to be disposable. And this really very much is that. Between Two Ferns works as an interview series, and obviously what works in this movie are the interview segments. The actual story isn't very interesting, isn't very funny. It doesn't really try to be anything more than comedy in that regard. And yeah, it's fine. I wouldn't watch it again. But the interview segments are the highlight.
Between Two Ferns, the movie.
Also on Netflix we had El Camino, a Breaking Bad story. This is the sequel movie to Breaking Bad. I was a huge Breaking Bad fan. Still am, I guess. This movie, I was kind of, I think we were all kind of like, oh, what's it going to be? It's very exciting. Spoilers for this, I guess, if you care, because there's nothing too spoilery in it. This is a movie that's fine, but also totally unnecessary. It's basically following Jesse after what happened in Breaking Bad. It's exactly what you'd expect. The story that we kind of expected from Jesse was that he might break free and try to go to Alaska, and that's exactly what happens. It's fine. It's kind of like an epilogue to a book in some ways, in that you don't necessarily need it. The story is basically done. I don't know if there was much point doing this. Like, what is it, like 6 years later? Like some of the cast is older. You can get over that, obviously. A lot of cameos from people in the original. From the original series. I liked some of them. Badger and Skinny Pete's, I liked that a lot. It was nice seeing Jesse had some real good friends. Because really, we could talk about the story, but there isn't much of a story. It's basically just, he's on the run, he has to go here. It very much felt like this one, has a lot of allusions to being a Western in Breaking Bad. And I think this is the one where it went kind of full Western. You kind of had Jesse kind of at one point going in like guns blazing, kind of felt very Han Solo-ish actually, where he kind of got in a shootout with someone to get some money so he could finally leave. Bryan Cranston came back as Walter White. I'm not sure about how I feel about that. He has this weird bubble head as well. He obviously didn't want to shave his head for like a 5-minute scene. It's a flashback to like season 2 that kind of basically pushes like what he said in the finale, that he was just doing this because he loved doing it. Basically, it just kind of reestablishes that earlier, which kind of feels unnecessary. But I think people wouldn't have been happy if he wasn't in it. Jesse Plemons is in it as Todd. The Todd character is interesting. Again, the problem with this is that the story has been told. of Breaking Bad. The story of Jesse has been told, so a lot of the movies sometimes is flashbacks that don't feel really necessary. It just feels like it's kind of padded out a bit. The stuff in the modern day, there was some good stuff. There was a part where it was a very tense kind of standoff with people impersonating cops. For what this is, it's fine. It's just that what it is pretty unnecessary. It's kind of one for Breaking Bad purists, but even at that, if you haven't seen it, it's not really going to change your interest in the series or really change how you look at the series all that much. It's basically just a footnote that, hey, there was a Breaking Bad movie. One of the best films I've seen on Netflix this year that they made, actually, well, I haven't seen A Marriage Story yet, was Dolemite Is My Name.
Hey, Auntie, I was thinking about putting out a comedy record.
Comedy? You been a singer, a shape dancer?
It's real hard to break in. I do whatever it takes to get in.
This being the big return from Eddie Murphy into a more serious role. He plays Rudy Ray Moore, of course, who created Dolemite. This movie was really, really good. I enjoyed it a lot. Some people haven't liked it that much. They thought it's a bit overrated. I think it might depend on kind of your knowledge of Rudy Ray Moore to a certain degree, maybe. And I had a passing knowledge of him. It reminds me very much, and I think the people who wrote this also wrote Ed Wood, and it very much feels like an Ed Wood film, to be honest. In that it's kind of, this kind of flawed, not perfect filmmaker, but they're doing it for other reasons, and look at what they got, and it's kind of a happy ending. It's kind of a feel-good movie. But Eddie Murphy is fantastic in it. You forget how good Eddie Murphy is, because sometimes he picks awful projects, or sometimes he just does nothing. But he's so funny in this. It's good to see him back in that capacity. The supporting cast is all great. Yeah, there's not much to say about this movie. It's a really good film. Nothing, revolutionary about it. It feels like kind of type of film we've seen a lot of before. But it was very entertaining, very funny. The cast and the supporting cast were really good. Maybe check it out some Sunday. It's one of those movies where if you just struggling for something to watch, you could do much worse than Dolemite Is My Name. Another biopic, fuck, who cares? I saw this year was Judy.
I don't have a home. I can't even get a manager.
London would offer you a lot of money.
Talk of the town is desperate to do a deal with you.
You're saying I have to leave my children if I want to make enough money to be with my children? I would very much like to stay.
Now, I don't really know a lot about Judy Garland, really, but I went into this, and I thought it was really good. It's one of those ones where I'm glad it didn't have as big a budget as some of the biopics get. I think it was a bit more modest, and I think that allowed us to focus a bit more on the character. Renee Zellweger plays Judy Garland. She was brilliant in this film. From the singing, I think she did her own singing. I think she did her own singing in Chicago, so I'm kind of assuming. She was very, very good. I really had a much more kind of interest and respect for Judy Garland, because I again, with some biopics I'm aware of the character. This one I really don't know a lot about Judy, so it was very, very well handled in that regard. It's a very, very kind of sad movie as well. As much as it's a celebration of the character, it didn't shy away from the kind of dark side of this and her kind of claim to fame at a time when being a child star was very, very kind of unsafe to a certain degree, that you were kind of micromanaged, you were basically owned by the studio. There's a very, very kind of tough scene where she's confronted by the head of MGM, and it's a very, very sad story seeing this character that never really got to live a normal life, and now what she wants to do good. That's what I really liked. It's we kind of see her, basically the story is that and it doesn't really cover all of her life, and that's another thing I really appreciate, because a lot of these kind of true life films kind of feel like they try to cover someone's entire career. This doesn't. It says a few flashbacks. So when she was younger, the actress who played Judy Garland as well, I want to say, when she was younger, was also really, really good. Obviously Renee Zellweger was great, but the younger actress did a phenomenal job in my opinion. And it basically covers just basically the last few months where she goes to England because she's not really a bankable star in America anymore, because she needs to get money to kind of keep a certain lifestyle for her kids and basically be a good mother. And yeah, it's a very, very touching film. More so than I expected, but just because of the virtue of the fact that it is Judy Garland, there is moments that it is quite funny. She's a very interesting character in the film. I know she's a real person, but I think I say character for the context of the film. In that we feel such pity for her, but we also kind of love the kind of flamboyant over the top side of her. The cast of the film in general are very good. I don't know the names of any of the actors. That's the problem with reviewing like 20 films in one sitting. I know she had an assistant that was very good. She had a love interest that was also that you kind of I would say I didn't really buy their love story, but I guess it was meant to be kind of a whirlwind romance, so it worked in that regard. But yeah, even if you don't know much about Judy Garland, it's very accessible, which worked for me. I thought I liked this movie quite a bit. Well worth checking out. A little bit sad, but I would say more bittersweet than outright depressing. There's another true story film that I thought I'd like a lot more than I did. It's known as Le Mans 66 over here. In some markets, it's Ford v Ferrari.
Suppose Henry Ford II wanted to build the greatest race car the world's ever seen to win the 24 hours of Le Mans. What's it take?
Well, it takes something money can't buy.
Money can buy speed.
What about speed?
This is the Christian Bale, Matt Damon film, directed by James Mangold. Yeah, look, I'm not really a car person. I don't know if that's necessarily a factor, really. That wouldn't bug me, to be honest. In fact, the best scenes in this movie are the racing scenes. It looks fantastic, the racing scenes. They must have used some practical effects with a mixture of CGI. Seeing some of the behind the scenes, I was very impressed with that. To its great credit, I would say I was worried of how do you make car racing exciting all the way through. It got to the finale and I was like, we just had a pretty big racing set piece before this. I'm probably not going to be interested in this one. But I actually was. The finale worked very, very well. Now, what I think didn't work, and some people are disagreeing here with me, I'm sure, I didn't really ever buy the relationship or interest or relationship and kind of friendship, I guess, between Matt Damon and Christian Bale. It just felt very fake. And as far as, his character, I like Matt Damon's character. And Matt Damon hasn't really done many serious roles, I don't think, for a while. I thought he was very good in this sort of Southern cowboy kind of former racer character that I thought was quite enjoyable. Christian Bale, a lot of people love his performance. This is, his performance we've seen from him before, this kind of over-the-top English kind of guy. Can't remember his name, Ken Miles, I think his name was of his character. One thing I also really didn't buy in this film was everyone was kind of like, you can't put him, he's just wild card, this maverick, we can't trust him to race this car because what if he gets in front of a microphone? And to be honest, didn't come off as that much of a wild card, to be honest. He threw a spanner at one point, which also has one thing I thought was really stupid. At the very start of the movie, he throws a spanner at Matt Damon's character, and then it comes back later on in the film like, here's a spanner he threw at my head, and it's like, oh, it didn't really feel like a big moment then. It doesn't really feel like it landed there, to be honest, emotionally speaking. So yeah, I didn't really buy Ken Miles as a wild card in the film. It just made a lot of the conflict not that interesting. And to be honest, I found the story interesting, but I never found anything that I kind of was invested in. Like, they wanted us to kind of root for Ford, like, yeah. But really, we're supposed to be cheering on just this massive company. Most of the company looks like, sleazy suits. Half the characters in the film didn't really care for one, seemingly. So why should we care? Now that was just my own personal feelings on the film. I thought it was well made though, technically. I thought the performances were quite good. Check it out. A lot of people kind of wrote this off at the beginning as it's going to be your dad's favourite film. Probably will be. But if you're into cars, I thought also it was very, very long. Way too long. But if you're into racing, if you're into sports history, you might enjoy it if you want to check it out. I also felt the ending was a little bit rushed. It kind of got to the ending and it was like, let's just wrap it up, throw in all these things at the end. But it's fine. I didn't love it as much as other people. Some people are putting it in their top 10s of the year. It just didn't totally land for me. Another film that people really, really loved that just didn't really work for me was The Souvenir.
Do you think she suspects that you creeped down to our bed?
No.
I thought we'd put Anthony down the end. It's not that kind of relationship anyway, is it?
If she does, that was an amazing performance.
This has massive critical reaction online. I thought it was okay. I thought it was a very well-made drama. I thought it was well shot, well acted. I just found it to be kind of plodding, a little bit boring, very melodramatic. I'm not a huge fan of melodrama, and I know it's like slightly based on a true story to a certain degree. It just felt like nothing really happened. It felt like a very frank and honest portrayal of a destructive relationship, which was great. But it just, I just found it to be very kind of predictable in many ways, and not all that interesting. It just felt very dry, a bit too dry for my taste. It's a good romantic drama, I guess. As I said, it looks good, very well written, I would say, but it was just a bit too slow and a bit too dry for my taste. And that's not always the case. Sometimes I can get through a slow film, as we might see later, but this just didn't fully click with me. But it's clicked with a lot of people. So if you wanted to see, if it's for you, check out The Souvenir. I will say I want to see it again, fully make my mind up, but on first watch, I didn't totally love it. One film I saw this year that I actually really enjoyed was a documentary called Hail Satan.
We're not what you think we are.
Satanic Temple was an idea between a handful of people directly confronting authority.
So this is a documentary on the Church of Satan. Now I've always had a kind of an interest in the Church of Satan. Just seeing their beliefs. They're not exactly what you think they are. They're not just like, oh, we believe in the devil, that kind of. And this takes a sort of a different approach in that regard. It looks at the people involved with the Church of Satan and some of their beliefs, sort of the kind of conflicts and schisms in it that I found very, very interesting. To see that it wasn't really what you think it is. I think it was well made in that it fights against a lot of the conceptions you might have about the Church of Satan, and there's a lot of misconceptions people have about it. It's very well made for a documentary. It seems to be fairly above board as far as the veracity of everything in it. And yeah, there's not much to say about it. When it comes to documentaries, you can only say so much, except to say that it's an interesting story, it's well tackled, seems pretty comprehensive. Very informative on a topic that a lot of people aren't aware of. What can I say? It grabbed me and I found it quite interesting. So if you want to learn a bit more about the Church of Satan, and you might even find that it changes your preconceptions about it a little bit, check out Hail Satan. If you want to see a real dark satanic film this year, you should have seen The Nightingale.
We don't want no trouble.
That's just the way, isn't it? You don't want trouble, but sometimes trouble wants you.
This is from Jennifer Kent, who gave us The Babadook. It says as Aisling Francoisi, who was an Irish actress, I believe. This movie is so freaking dark. There's a lot of rape in it. It's a very upsetting film. But it's also very, very well done. It's also, I have to give props to this film for being incredibly well researched. It's sort of a historical drama. Aisling Francoisi plays this kind of Irish criminal because a lot of, Australia was a British colony, Ireland was a British colony. She was, because of that, sent to Van Diemen's Land, Tasmania and Australia for being a criminal, along with the rest of her family. And she's basically a servant to someone in the British Army. And, through a certain series of events, she has to end up fending for herself, and she goes out looking for revenge against the people who, wronged her. It reminded me a lot of The Revenant, and I liked The Revenant. Overall, I liked it, especially in its technical aspects, but the characters didn't always connect with me. It felt like the kind of stuff in it was a bit, very robotic with its handling of emotions in The Revenant. This one I felt had a lot more of an emotional core, and what I liked about it was it sort of is not just about someone going for revenge, but it's also about, you know, what colonialism does to people, the kind of divides it makes in people. I think, you know, a lot of, like I said, this film has a lot of rape in it. I think that was meant to be, you know, representation of countries under colonialism, especially who gets raped in the film. And it also kind of, you know, is about oppression, how people group together through oppression, because, you know, we have a lot of presence of African Americans, African characters who were brought into Australia, who were basically slaves and who were treated as lessers as well. And then we have these Irish characters who were prisoners and being kept, you know, under the toe as well of British people. As I said, I'm Irish. I did feel even the British people got a bad rap in this. They look like absolute monsters. But of course, you know, some of this is probably based on reality, because as I said, I do think it's very well researched. I think the film looks very nice. It's very violent and gory, very upsetting, dark film. Definitely not one to watch if you're looking for something to lift your spirits. But if you're looking for a kind of a dark thriller with a strong historical background that's well directed and well acted, you might want to check out The Nightingale. Well, if the film like The Nightingale is kind of about subtlety, let's talk about a film that's just excessive to a massive degree, and that is Gemini Man.
25 years ago, he took my blood. He made you from me. He's been lying to you the whole time. He told you you were an orphan. And of all the people in the world to come after me, why would he send you?
Incredibly expensive movie that has been in development forever. And it's excessive even down to the amount of frames it has per second. I saw this in 120 frames per second, I believe it was. Mainly out of curiosity, because it's not like I ever had high hopes for this film anyway. I'm just going to talk about 120 frames a second thing for a minute. It's I mean, I can't even put into words, it's baffling. You're thinking it yourself. It's really strange seeing a film at such a high frame rate. Like, at times, like I would say the clarity of the shots looks really good, and the fact that the effects at most of the time hold up to scrutiny is really impressive. The depth of the shots looks really good as well. I think, like, especially the natural shots look great. I mean, there's a reason why nature documentaries are often shot at such a high frame rate. And I will also say that, you know, I didn't hate it for massive chunks of the movie. In fact, but there was other times I didn't even notice it. It does mess with the darkness in some parts and the clarity of the image to an almost excessive degree. It's not always necessary. I think kind of probably would have been better in a lower frame rate at times. I would also say, especially during like during some of the action scenes, there's a chase scene on motorbikes. Everything just looks like it's sped up. It looks kind of laughable during certain moments of it, and other times I was not entirely sure what was going on. But there's other action scenes that work very well. I think there's one particular scene where there's a minigun and it looks gorgeous. So that's 120 frames per second. As for the film itself, it feels like a film that was torn out of the early 2000s, because that's basically what it is. The effects, for the most part, are good. Relatively impressive, except at the end, for some reason, it's like, looks terrible. The cast, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead, she's pretty good in it. Clive Owen is fine. Will Smith is fine. I didn't find the characters that really interesting, to be honest. There's no real depth to them. Benedict Wong is in it, who's kind of funny. At times, most of the time, they're just jokes that miss the mark. Not like, you know, the action scenes are fine. The bike scene was pretty interesting. The finale was overstuffed. I'm just going to spoil it, okay? As I said, Will Smith's the clone, who's basically been raised by Clive Owen, the younger Will Smith, obviously, and it's like his son. And then at the end, there's another one, and they kill him, and you're like, what? But you don't really care. Clive Owen dies, and then the most hilarious ending was just like, older Will Smith sells younger Will Smith to college. And that's basically the end, and then they go into the sunset. The two Will Smiths and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. That's our happy ending. Gemini Man. If it's on TV at some point or on an airplane and you don't have anything better to watch, yeah, fine. But it's not a good movie. 120 frames per second was the only reason I went to see this, and that was a weird experience. But as for the film itself, it's not really So that's the rest of 2019 films I felt that I didn't have much to say about, or I think, people weren't that interested in hearing, but hopefully you got some good recommendations out of it, or maybe even some brief reviews. If you're saying, hey, you didn't talk about this film, well, maybe I'll talk about it in my next video, which is going to be the best of 2019, my favourite films, along with some honourable mentions. What was the most forgettable film you saw this year? Let me know in the comments below. Or do you disagree with what I said? Did you love a film I hated? Did you hate a film I loved? Whatever what you thought, let me know in the comments below. Because I cannot spell cult. This one's going to help me here. Without you. I'll see you on the next one.